Hi my love, welcome back to another episode of Radical Radiance. This is the last episode that I'm recording in Oroville in India. I'm flying to Portugal tomorrow, although I will already be there when this episode gets posted, so hello from the past. And it's always so beautiful to reflect on these moments of beginnings and endings. Like this feels like a really big chapter of my life coming to a close. Maybe not even a chapter, maybe a book coming to a close and a whole new book opening and starting a new chapter. And one of the biggest, most fascinating things about Oroville and coming back here consistently is meditating in the Matrimandir, which if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen it on my stories. And I don't know if you know anything about Oroville. I certainly didn't know anything about it before I came here for the first time. I only knew that the place where the friend that I had made was doing Kalari was here, which is the only reason that I came here. And it turns out it's a very, very, very unique, very interesting place with a very, very intense, I would say, energy, but very beautiful. And of course, a lot of other things going on that I don't get involved in. There's a lot of strange political things happening and strange, like almost religious, like cultish things happening here, which I just stay away from. But the Matrimandir itself is like a giant golden orb that was made as like the center of Oroville, which Oroville is like kind of situated in between just local Indian villages. And it has so it's like a very strict process to be able to go inside. And then you can go inside the golden orb and then up into the inner chamber, which is it's very, very silent, very peaceful, very quiet, very calm, concentrated, intense energy there, where there's like a beam of light that's kind of collected from the sky down through a giant spherical piece of crystal or glass, and then it goes down through the bottom of that all the way through the golden orb into like a little, they call it a lotus pond, but like another meditation area underneath, where there's another crystal and like a lot of white marble. Go and have a Google of it if you're fascinated. Actually, it's very interesting. And so there's this inner chamber that you can meditate in that has this very, very, very specific energy, very concentrated, very intense. And then after that, you can go in the different petals. They're called, there's 12 petals. You will have heard me talk about the goodness petal or the goodness chamber before. Each of the petals has its own color and its own quality. And the colors and qualities vary. And they're like these little chambers, almost like a cave where it's just saturated in that color. So goodness is hot pink. Then there's a whole bunch of other ones. Sincerity is a light blue. Gratitude is like lime green, which I always, like this color green, which I find so uncomfortable for some reason in there. I'm like, I don't think gratitude is that color, but anyway. Receptivity is like a light orange color. Courage is red. Peace is like a deep purple. So there's all these chambers that you can meditate in, and then also different areas of like a very beautiful garden as well. And the reason that it's so fascinating is because I've been coming to Oroville now since the start of last year, February last year, which is a year and a half ago basically. And it's so fascinating to come back to places regularly, because this is my 4th or 5th time in Oroville now, can't remember which one. And I've changed so much in between each of those trips. And it's fascinating to have something like the inner chamber of the Matrimandir, which is something that doesn't change, right? It doesn't change at all. It's exactly the same every time. And other things change here in town, like different cafes open and close, I stay in different accommodations in different parts of town. I'm still going to Kalari, but the practice changes and the teachers change, and I change like in my practice. But the Matrimandir is exactly the same every time. So it's a beautiful, almost like measuring stick of how much I've changed, because I can think back and really remember what my meditations were like in February last year, the kind of things I was thinking about, the kind of things I was ruminating about, the kind of thoughts I wanted to escape from, the kind of qualities that I wanted to experience more of, the kind of emotions I was feeling, the things I was going through in my life at that moment, the things I was like really wanting to learn about myself. And I really can quite distinctly identify my states of being and my states of my life in each of those trips based off what was happening in the Matrimandir in my meditations. What was I feeling in my body? Was I even in my body whatsoever? Was I just like thinking about things in my mind? Was I thinking about like business things and like making money? Or was I thinking about other things going on in my life or other opportunities? Or was I thinking about connections with people? Or was I, it could be 1,000 different things. And of course, when I'm here, I go to the Mantra Mandir. It's basically every day. It's closed on, I don't go on the weekends because I've got Kalari later on Saturday. And Sunday it's closed, Tuesday it's closed. So 4 out of 7 days I go. And of course it's different from day to day. Some days I have like very, 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 very like life-changing meditation. Sometimes the meditations are like very unremarkable and sometimes I've had too much coffee, sometimes I haven't had enough coffee, and they're always different. But overall there's like an interesting trend to observe. And this time has by far and away been the most completely fascinating, completely life-changing time. And I wanted to explain why, because I went to dinner with my brother last night because he's been here with me this month, which has been so beautiful, extraordinarily beautiful. And he's been coming to the Mantra Mandir with me some of the times and having his own like very interesting experiences in there as well. It's a totally unique experience. And so we went to a sound journey yesterday and then we went out for dinner to have noodle soup, and we were just having this like very, very, very interesting conversation about our experiences in there and what we were discovering. And I've been this time, and I want to share this because I wish that somebody had told me this sooner. And the people in my life that have shared these things with me genuinely like really, really, really have transformed my understanding of myself and my understanding of my own being and my connection to my own being, which affects my connection to life, which affects everything. It changes everything. And the more grounded and connected we are to our own inner being, the safer we are in ourselves, the safer we are in life, and the more we get to just enjoy ourselves. We get to just become so playful and curious about what this experience in this human body is going to be, because we get to let go of a lot of this like tension and rigidity and forcing and all of these kind of things. And that's been my journey. Like the more of my inner world I discover, the deeper I go, the more I spend time there, the more I spend time understanding it, the faster these things amplify in my life. And so this is the thing of like really understanding through conversations with people that have transformed my life and really changed my life a lot, through books that I've read, through really applying a lot of energy and effort to practicing the things that I read in specific books, and not just endlessly reading and like that kind of gratuitous knowledge where we don't actually apply any of it, which I'm so guilty of so much of the time. But really experimenting and sometimes using ChatGPT as a tool to like really deeply try and understand something in myself and then see if I can see it through a different lens, because I've really discovered these things. It's like all of the things I'm reading in all these books are the same thing, but they're all said in like completely different languages with completely different nuance based off the author's experience, with completely different symbology, with completely a different way of understanding things that maybe is something very different to what I intuitively, how I process the world, or my own inner language, right? And sometimes I read these books and I'm like, oh, I wish so much that I have had this experience, or that I had this knowledge, or that I could explore this thing. And then through my own self-inquiry and through exploring things through ChatGPT or through reading other books, and finally just like having enough of those things that everything kind of finally slots into place like a jigsaw puzzle. And then I'm like, oh, I have had that. I do understand that. It was just never quite the language that clicked. And so this whole time in this trip and this process of the Mantra Mandir has been about mapping my own inner landscape. And this is also hot off the back of being in Goa, doing this yoga teacher training and talking a lot, and absorbing and learning a lot about yoga philosophy and understanding like the 8 limbs of yoga and exploring those things, and obviously exploring so many other things as well, like the flow of energy in the body, the nadis, the Ida and the Pingala and the Shushumna, all of the different, many tens of thousands of millions of nadi channels in the body. And then also different pranayama techniques and different ways that that's affecting us. Obviously the different chakras in the body energetically, what they are and how they also then correspond to like very physiological nerve plexi in our body as well. And just obviously those things being said in a very specific language. The chakra system is a very, like, you can type it in on Google and it will come up with, like, obviously the very two-dimensional images of the lotus with the, like, each, like the root one has a certain number of petals, and then going up there's more petals, so they each have like these petals and there's a specific color associated with each chakra, and they have the symbol for the chakra, and then they're like shown where they are on the body and how they're linked and this kind of thing. And so I was exploring these kind of things as well, and like having in the course specific meditations to like explore these parts of your being or these parts of your body or of your energy and different ways of connecting to things. And I feel like so much of my life I've really outsourced a lot of this power. I will use the word power, I don't know if that's exactly the right word, but so much of my own ability to put my own language to things. In fact, putting far more trust in other people's knowledge and experience than in my own. And I think that's just the way that I've always been. I've always, ever since I've been very, very, very young, and I started reading from a very, very young age, a lot of books. So I've always been completely fascinated by knowledge and how things work and why they work and how things are linked and how things are related and what does that mean and why not, and do you know what I mean? Like wanting to have a lot of answers to things and always looking for outside of myself for the answers in books, in people, and that served me very well in my life up until the point, actually. I've always been very studious. I've always had very high standards for myself in terms of studying and understanding things and getting good grades and performing well academically and all this kind of thing. And obviously doing a master's in physiology, like human physiology. Everything was like research paper based. Everything has to be backed by research. You have to be able to cite all of the different research papers. All of my friends in Melbourne are doctors. Everybody, like you could never, recommend something that hasn't been backed by like 20 different research papers, because then it's just anecdotal evidence. And so I really was like very, very firmly embedded in that paradigm, right? Of like, how can I understand this thing? Let me go and read some books about it. Let me go and find out some things about it. And then let me, dive deep into those things and try and make sense of those things and then somehow apply that to me. And then, or I would like somehow fit myself into that paradigm, because obviously that must be right? It's like a reputable author. It makes sense what they're saying. I've thought about it. I've read like conflicting or like complementary other things as well to like get a well-rounded view of something. And that's a paradigm that's so comfortable to me. I find so much delight in it. Honestly, I could spend, and I have spent hundreds of thousands of hours laying in the sun reading books and like non-fiction books, understanding all of these different things. And I was very, very, very strongly encouraged on this trip by someone that's very precious to me, to what about if instead of reading so many books and learning so many things and endlessly going outside of myself to understand these things, what about if I just started spending more of that time going inwards and just putting my own language to my own experience and not discounting my own experience, not also having the experience and then being like, oh, let me just like, what lens am I viewing this through? Like through which paradigm of which author, and like, have I got it quite right? Or should it be this way? And then sometimes as well, like really applying a lot of energy and effort to like making something be a certain way so that it could fit a paradigm that I've read about. Do you know what I mean? And I can give you an example of this, like on the course, and like if you go on YouTube and type like chakra meditations, there will be hundreds, maybe thousands of different meditations that you can do to connect with your chakras. And they will all like walk you through starting at the root chakra normally and going up to the crown and feeling into that area of your body and visualizing that specific color, which goes up like rainbow colored. So from red to orange to yellow to green to blue to like violet to like white or like a deep violet at the top, and then up from there. And yeah, so you could do any chakra meditations and they will all take you through that journey, and maybe to like visualize the symbol or visualize this like kind of encouraged to visualize this very classic, I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about, like very classic image of like the two-dimensional lotus petals coming out almost like a mandala with the symbol in the middle for that chakra. And I don't know how many of these meditations that I've done, because I want to feel them, right? I want to connect with my body and my energy in this way, and like have a deeper understanding of these things and feel whether things are balanced or not, and that kind of thing. And I've done so many of these meditations, and really like forced it so much. And I am a very like visual person. I have a very strong imagination. I can really mentally visualize things well, which I credit to reading so many books from such a young age, and like reading so many fantasy books and just having to have an imagination, which is a very precious gift in my life. But yeah, really like forcing it. So I can force myself to visualize what the root chakra looks like, right? I can close my eyes, I can see that it's red, I can see that it has 4 petals, I can vaguely see like what the symbol in the middle would be. I can take that image and I can like put it in a certain part of my body if I want to, but it definitely doesn't come naturally to me in any way. It doesn't feel like anything. I can do it as a mental exercise, as like some mental gymnastics, but it doesn't create any sense of anything in my being, in my inner world. And so much of my life, my entire life has been like this, but especially my understanding of my inner world, what is inside, what is the things that are not outside of me and perceived with my 5 senses, but what are the things inside that are much finer and much more delicate, much more subtle than this like 3-dimensional material world. Understanding obviously that we are far more than just a physical body. So how do we get a sense of that? And we can't sense it with our 5 senses. So we have to be able to tune into different senses in different parts of ourselves, certainly in different parts of our being than this part, which we're so obsessed with that we live most of our lives from, this lovely brain and eyes that we spend, and a kind of cloud of like chaotic thinking up here. There's so much other wisdom inside of our body, in different parts of our body, in these like chakra centers where if if we weren't outsourcing so much of our power to other things, we might get to discover in different ways, which is exactly what has happened this trip. So I really took this advice to heart of like, okay, stop reading so much. I know that you've been on this course and you've learned all these new things that you want to apply to your life, and you want to be able to understand things, and you want to connect with things. And okay, you've got like a good theoretical understanding of this, but what if you just put all of that to one side and then just trust your own knowing, which it's very almost sad in a way that felt like such a dramatic thing, right? It's like even reflecting back, and this is so recent, this is like in the last month. And so I was like, okay, the perfect opportunity for me to do this is in the Matramandi, because you go into the inner chamber and it's 30 minutes of complete silence. It's almost like a vacuum. It's like everything is, there's nothing in there. It's silent, it's white, it's dim, they dim the lights, there's no sound. And it's just it's a time of like very intense concentration. So you can look with your eyes open, you can look at the beam of light going into the crystal, and there's pillars. There's obviously other people sitting around, which I often did it with my eyes open. But I was like, okay, I'm going to do these with my eyes closed and still be this energy of like very, very intense concentration of this beam of light, and very intense, like almost vacuum-like feeling, like a void. Be in that energy and then use that to like go inside and see what's in there, see what wants to come up, and like just be open to a few things. Be open to the fact that you can invite things to come up, and they will, and to trust the things that come up, and to not only to trust the things that come up and to trust the language that they come up in, understanding that we are all different beings having different experiences, and the inner language of somebody else is going to be different to my inner language, because I'm a specific type of soul having a specific type of experience with a lot of previous experience in this lifetime and other lifetimes. So someone else's language of their inner being is not wrong. It's just their language, right? And I can read all of their things and try and put that language to my own language. But it's like me going to China and then being shocked that I don't understand anything there, and I'm confused, and I can't order a coffee, and I can't get directions to where I want to go, and nothing makes sense to me. And then I'm upset that nothing makes sense, and I feel like I'm not making any progress in my life. But it's not that I'm not making any progress. It's just that I don't speak Chinese, right? And so much of my life has been like reading things just that aren't wrong. They're just Chinese to my English. They're just not the language of my inner life. So as this experiment, I was going to the Machamandi. The third point as well is that the things that come up are not by coincidence, right? Especially if we're not forcing them. We can force the things, like I was saying, I can force the imagination of the chakras. But and this is like something that we can come back to and revisit and build a map of what our inner life is, what our inner language is. And you start to understand that language like we would learn any other language. Like specific symbols will come up again and again and again. Specific feelings will come up in specific parts of your body. Specific memories will come up in specific parts of your body. Specific areas will feel connected to other areas and disconnected from other areas. There'll be different temperature sensations of heat and warmth and tingling, and areas that almost distract us on purpose from them so that we don't pay attention to them. And it's almost like an completely real inner landscape that we get to start mapping and start navigating. And it's almost like this thing where I would never just expect to pick up a Chinese textbook and then be able to go to China and, have a nice meal, order a coffee, make a conversation with a nice person, and be able to get directions to go to a beautiful temple and have a nice experience. I would never expect to be able to do that in one day. So obviously, applying this same logic, because I really try to be ruthless with this with myself, we can never expect that something's going to become comfortable after 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 times of doing it. So I really made this commitment to what if I just showed up with curiosity every day to start mapping this inner landscape and start being so curious about what it is, and see what things are coming up consistently, see what feelings are coming up consistently, see what things I can explore in this way, understanding that I'm learning a new language, understanding that it's going to be something that takes time, and it's something very dynamic. It's something that will be changing. So I better show up for it every day and see how it's changing, because that's completely affecting my entire life. And so that's exactly what I've been doing, and it's been genuinely mind-blowing and life-changing in so many interesting ways, because first of all, the language inside is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so delightful to spend time in there. And then it's like, oh, why would I ever not want to meditate? Because of course I would love to be in that place. It's so lovely. And it's something like of my own, my own, and like connected to divinity above and below in the earth. And it's a place where everything feels very whole and very connected. And I get to create that feeling on purpose. And so instead of and of course, all of the things that I've read and all of these other meditations that I've done, for years I did a lot of guided meditations. Now I really mainly only do silent meditations where I can create my own journey around the map of my body. And of course, there's things that I've borrowed from other paradigms. I follow this map of the chakras in my body because it's a language that I've been familiar with for years, and that it's a nice way to create a sense of coherence maybe, or just some landmarks, really, I guess is the right word, in my body that I can relate to. And the more I develop this in my own life, in my own inner language, the more things that I've read and things I've understood in different ways are kind of slotting into that instead of me slotting into them. And it's all of these big breakthroughs and realizations of oh, this is what they meant. This is what they meant. Of course. And then it makes so much sense from my own language, because of course it makes sense from my own language. So I've had just extraordinary experiences in there. And the language sometimes changed. The first big breakthrough I had of this was looking for the void within myself. Because I spent so much time and energy and I give so much attention to the things in my life that are very light and very bright and very, with a lot of levity, with a lot of joy, with a lot of delight. But many people in my life actually reflect to me like, are you just like bypassing things? Is this not authentic? Are you not authentic? Are you not, maybe you're not authentic, but maybe you're delusional in some way, that you're like, not, maybe you're like not looking at things in your life, you're not processing things in your life. And it confounds me a lot, this thing, because I don't feel like I'm purposefully doing these things. And I put a lot of like effort into trying to make sure that I'm not doing these things. But I was really looking for this void inside of me, like, okay, where is it? What would it look like? What would it feel like? And then as an exercise was really just looking for the feeling of what the void would feel like inside of me. Because I could understand conceptually that the feeling inside the inner chamber of the Matramandi does feel like the void. It's like a vacuum, I was saying. It's cold, it's cool, it's dim, it's colorless, like it's silent, there's not much light in there, there's not much warmth. And yeah, it feels like everything's been sucked out of there. And I was like, okay, I can understand this feeling of the void. And it's not a feeling that I actively seek out in my life whatsoever, apart from in the Matramandia. And so I was like, okay, if I know what that feeling feels like in there, I can explore it in my inside world. So I closed my eyes and I was like, where is this feeling in my being? What is the feeling of the void? Where can I find it? And I was like looking in different parts of like kind of using the chakras as a map as well. Like, where would it be? Where would it be? Where would it be? And I found it like in my pelvic bowl kind of area, kind of held by my pelvis in a sense, of like a big void sensation there. And then of course balance, like this whole area is always like very like bright. It feels very like big. It's like a big sun is sitting in here always, and it's very energizing. I really give it a lot of love and a lot of energy and a lot of attention and a lot of gratitude. And I really feel it like that. So it's like this kind of balancing thing of like a big sun here, and then below that in equal size, like this void that I discovered. And it felt like a big galaxy, like a cosmos, like an outer space feeling. And then I was like, okay, cool, I found this. And then it kind of became this like portal that I was like, oh, maybe I can go into it and explore it. So I did, and I went through it, and it just became this like my own cosmos of my system. And it was so fascinating. It was so unbelievably fascinating in the sense that and then again using the chakras as like a familiar template almost for my language, I could see and sense and feel each of my chakras as planets planets in this cosmos of myself. And some of them were so familiar, like so bold and so obvious. My heart and my solar plexus one were like very like in an orbit together. The solar plexus is like a big sun, like our sun, like a big gas, bright, yellow, hot, energizing, loving sun. And the planet of my heart was like a very, very, very big, like with a very hot pinkish orange, big atmosphere coming out from it. And it was very welcoming. And then I could either see the planets as like from me being the void, seeing the planets, or I could be the planet and feel what it was like to be that planet, or I could be some other being, like a kind of astronaut self of mine, and go onto the planet to explore them. And so I did that. I went and explored all of them. I went through this like atmosphere of the pink mist, and it was just this planet of like this very, very, very big, luscious oasis, like full of like tropical plants and waterfalls and big, bold flowers everywhere. Like greens, emerald green, like aquamarine green, all of these greens, all of these pinks and oranges of all these flowers of this like very luscious world. And I was like, wow, that's so nice. And I was like, cool. And those ones were like the most obvious, most glaring ones. And I was like, okay, cool. They were like very, very, and of course, they're the energies that I connect the most to in my life in general, I would say. And I was like, wow, I wonder what the other ones would be if I went to try and find them. So I went and I was just like traveling in space, and I was like, oh, what about my sacral planet? What would that look like? What would my root chakra planet look like? what would my third eye one? What would my crown chakra planet look like? What about my throat? And I couldn't find my throat chakra anywhere in space. I looked for it for a really long time, and I had this like really sense of like devastating sadness, and my throat was aching in the meditation of like, and this has been like the big journey of my whole life of like, how can you express yourself, right? In like, how can you express your truth? And and now just reflecting as I'm saying this, it's like, yeah, like outsourcing all of my truth and all of my power to all of these other people's wisdom, which is beautiful that other people have wisdom and they're sharing it. But what about connecting to my own wisdom and sharing it, first of all, with my own self, and then with other people if it's of any benefit to other people? Do you know what I mean? And I couldn't find it anywhere, the throat one. And some of them I had to really, the third eye and the crown one, I was like, like they were very vague, like they were there, but they weren't strong. They were very like ephemeral looking and like wispy and ethereal. The sacral one and the root one were like very, very fascinating. The sacral one was like a big planet of water, just pure water, like a planet of mermaids and underwater cities, like Atlantis kind of cities, and coral gardens and all kind of other wildlife below, just an entire planet of ocean. And then the root chakra planet was basically like a planet of desert, sand dunes and beautiful like patterns in the sand, and like a hot orange sun. And those two planets were also like kind of in their own orbit together, kind of like a beach between the two planets in some way. And then I was like, what about all my organs? And then each of my organs became their own moons, like circulating the chakras that they were going around. And my hands were like their own suns in this galaxy. And it was just the most extraordinary experience of this, of like, oh wow, like you can just create an extraordinary map of these things. And I came back to this world like in all of my meditations, and I like experimented with things. I was like, oh, the heart one is so big, this planet, like what if it had a gravitational force that could somehow find the throat one somehow and like kind of call it from wherever it's lost and be like, hey, come back here where we all are, you know, like come and hang out with this whole planetary system. And eventually I did find the throat one. It wasn't like the next day or the next day. It was like after a few days of like coming back and looking for it and trying to understand it in a different way. And from there, like then now I've like kind of, for the moment, left this cosmos system, and I'm really in this world of like very, very, very fascinating big suns and lotus flowers, but not in this like two-dimensional sense, but like actual. And in the Matramandi, in the gardens, there are lotuses everywhere. And I have lotuses on me, like open ones and closed ones. And I love them so much. And just the big buds of them, and then them opening like petal by petal into this shape. And then with the seed pod in the middle, like the beautiful, very alien seed pod, like a communication to another realm. And coming up from the water. And so I've been this also just arose so naturally when I was just experimenting one day, and I like came into my inner being, and I was like, wow, what am I going to find in here today? Like what do you want to say to me today? Like what are we going to explore? And it just now it's like, now there's a lot of consistency actually when I go in there to see. But I can very with a lot of intention, use these suns and these lotuses to explore so much what I'm feeling. And then I found this big sun here, obviously, and then the bottom part, which was the void, now became like this very big, like a very big sun that's this big, and then an equally that big lotus beyond underneath, like again in my pelvic bowl, with a stem like going down into the center of the earth. And then the lotus is like open to the big sun above. So it's like a very big open lotus with a very big sun. And then in the seed pod, I discovered this point of like complete stillness. Like complete stillness. And then I could be that moment of stillness, but I could also be, I don't know what the right word to describe it is, but I could go and sit on that seed pod basically of the lotus, held by the whole lotus and with the whole sun, and sit in that moment of complete stillness and just be there in stillness and feel what the different energy was below and what the energy of the sun was above. And now that's a place that I can go to whenever I want. just this moment of stillness completely inside of my being, like right here. And that's such a precious gift. And then from there I can like create these images of lotuses everywhere. And then I'm seeing an acupuncturist here, and she was like, oh, there's things in your heart that you're not listening to. Your heart is trying to tell you things and you're not listening. And I was like, oh, I feel like I am listening, but okay, I must be not listening, you know. There must be things maybe I'm not listening. So, or at least let me be curious about this. So then I could go inside into my inner world and then have my heart as a closed lotus, and then just ask it like, can you show me what you want to show me? Can you tell me what you want to tell me? I'm listening. Tell me what you want to tell me. And then like visually let the lotus unfold. And the heart lotus is always a very, very big, like pink one with green like leaves around it. And it can open, and there can be something inside of it, you know? Maybe it's a person. Maybe inside is like, there's just out of the blue comes up a memory that I haven't thought about from my childhood or something like that. Or something that I've been ruminating over that comes out, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I do need to address that thing. Like I would like to bring more attention and awareness to this thing. And creating a map of like going through all of my chakras from the back, like from the altar major at the back of your skull, and like coming back down all of them, and like creating lotuses, like opening outwards all the way down and then all the way up the front and out of the top of my head, and like becoming just a big lotus myself at one point, actually, because I was like, oh, it's interesting that the crown, I understand this is a big ramble of this thing, but I'm just inviting you to make it up. There are no rules in your meditations. And I wish that I'd started doing this years ago, because the way that it has changed my sense of myself and my sense of ease in my life is extraordinary. But then I was like, what? I wonder why the crown one and the third eye one feel so ephemeral. And I was like, I wonder what that means. I wonder if I could like connect more to those and connect outwards up the top more. And so I was like, oh, I wonder how that would be. And that's always just the question. I never force it. I'm just like going inside and being like, oh, I wonder if I set the intention to connect, to like open to like divinity pouring into me, like light pouring into me from the source or from God or the divine or whatever you want to call it. I was like, how would that be? How would that be? And then in this language of like, and it makes perfect sense, because my language in my life of like myself with life and with nature and everything is always color and flowers and nature. So it's like, oh, this is so obvious of a language for you. And it's so obvious why none of these other languages ever felt intuitively right. And so I went in and I was like, oh, what would it be like to be open to a divine light right now? How would that be? And then I just got to sense my whole self as like just one very, very, very big lotus petal, like a closed one. And then slowly it was like opening. And then say my whole body, you can't see my whole body now, but say like when the flower opens is like still the part where there's all the petals are held by it, and then there's the seed pod, and then there's kind of this like space here. And so that's what happened, and it like opened out like this, like petals coming out, and then I was still here like in this kind of the still area. And because the lotus had opened up, it created this whole opening with the seed pod to like be open to this channel of light coming from above. And again, like this big sun and this light coming in and charging up the sun. And it was just the most extraordinary feeling, the most beautiful gift to know that that's accessible at any time, that I can just come into my inner world and be a lotus that's opening up not only to like light from above, but also have roots going down to the center of the earth as well, and to have a moment of pure stillness, a place of pure stillness in there where I can just rest and like just be and be held and be supported in all of those things. So just in case any of that is helpful at all, because your language will be different, but if you want somewhere to start, like try it on, you know? And of course, like, and it makes so much sense now. I'm like, obviously the language is color and flowers. Of course it is. And maybe it will evolve to something else. And maybe the planets will come back in another way, like in another way when I need to explore different things and when there's different messages for me and other things, you know? But whatever the thing is that speaks to you already in your soul the most, like when I see colors in the sun, flowers in the sun, in golden hour, they shift something in my being. And that was already my inner world telling me, oh, this is it. This is, we're talking to you. Like, why are you listening? Why are you listening? So whatever that is for you, whatever moves you to your core, that is probably the language. So go inside your being and forget about what everyone else says. Forget about the going through the chakras and imagining the colors of the rainbow going up and this visual thing. Like, let it be your own. Like, forget about the chakras altogether if you want to, you know? Like, it's just an easy template for me to follow. But whatever it is that already moves you in your soul, in your being, in your true essence, just go inside and see, just ask, how would that be? What would it look like? What would it feel like? And be so open to just seeing what comes up. And then you get to create your own language of your own self, of your own being. How could there be anything more beautiful than that? So I hope you get to have a beautiful exploration of these things. I really do. And please, if you get to explore something extraordinary, tell me. I would love to know. I would love to know. Sending you so much love.